Let me show you something real quick. Okay, there's your ultimate sanding sponge. A slightly used piece of 150 is just perfect to set up. Easy to sand, the easiest mud to sand. Now you know how to trim your sanding sponge, and I know this is boring, it's not sexy, but it's gonna help you. And don't forget to subscribe. You just learn how to do angles like perfectly. That's it, your angle's done. Keep a high power light with you, shining down the wall. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for being here. Okay, so on today's video, I'm going to teach you how to properly sand out a drywall job. I'm going to get you set up with your sanding sponge. We're going to trim this sanding sponge in a way where it's going to be so much more functional. It's going to be easier to hang on to. It's going to fit inside the angles way better. If you haven't done this much and you're not really sure what you're looking for, you can spend a lot of extra time sanding, looking it over with your light, sanding it out with your sponge, touching up. My channel is all about teaching you to do these things step by step. Also, before I forget, don't forget to subscribe. Okay, check this out. An empty mud box is perfect to use as like a little cutting board, okay? You're gonna need, this is a hacksaw blade. You can use the kind of hacksaw that attaches to a sawzall. You can just use a regular type hacksaw blade. But the fine serrated edge on it is perfect. It's what you need to cut your sanding sponge. You can't really use like a sheetrock saw or any other kind of saw because it will just tear up the sponge. So you need a hacksaw blade. Okay, your sanding sponge. This is light and this is medium. I like medium. They also have heavy. That's a little too harsh. Okay, now watch. We're gonna trim a nice edge. I want my knife to have a bit of an angle. You can see that. And I'm gonna come down right on the very edge, like that, okay? So, let's cut this one. Okay, now look, beautiful edge. Okay, we're not done yet, but that's a start. Okay, now here's the medium side, like I said. We're gonna do both sides. We're gonna do an angle here and here because we're gonna be holding it like that, and that's what we want. Okay, so let's do this side. When you're cutting this, you kind of want to apply pressure when you're pulling, not when you're pushing. Okay, that'll give you a nice straight cut. So I'm not really applying any pressure when I'm pushing that way, only when I'm pulling. Okay, look at that. Beautiful, right? Beautiful angle. It's going to fit in the angle so much better. Okay, but we're not done. Now it's still not really super comfortable to hang on to. Okay, it's good, but it's going to be a lot better. Okay, so you're going to come down about in the middle part of the sponge. Okay, about the middle. So we're going to come down about a 1/2 inch, and we're going to cut in about a 1/2 inch. Okay, maybe 5/8. And we're going to cut down that spot. We're going to notch this out. Boom. Do both sides. Do this side too. Come down about a 1/2 inch. Cut in about a 1/2 inch. Look at that. So comfortable to hang on to. Now, when I'm sanding my angles, I can sand this way. I can turn my hand and sand this way. I can go up and down this way. I can turn it this way. I never have to spin my hand around into awkward positions. Okay, but we're not quite done. This edge here, you don't want a sharp edge. A super sharp edge is going to leave a groove on the other side of the angle. You're going to end up, kind of sanding out a groove on the other side of your angle, and you're going to have to touch that up. So you want to trim off that sharp edge. You want it to be about 1/16 of a flat spot right there. So just watch. I'm just going to trim off just the edge. Okay, look at that. That's all I trimmed off. Now I got about a 1/16 of an inch flat spot right there. That's perfect. Now I can stick it all the way into the angle, come down, it will sand it perfectly, and it won't gouge the other side of the angle. Okay, do both sides. Now, the only other thing to do, your bottom side of your sponge, this edge is pretty harsh. So I usually just take a piece of the sponge I just cut, okay, and I just kind of rub it on here for a second. Smooth out that harsh edge so you're not leaving scratch marks while you're sanding. Okay, now you're good to go. Okay, there is your ultimate sanding sponge for your project. This is my own design too. Okay, let's get the sanding pole set up. Talk about this real quick. I know this is kind of boring, but by the end of the video, you know, if you haven't done this much and you're going to set out a drywall job, this video is going to help you a lot. You're going to know what you're looking for. You're going to be able to get it done much faster, and it's going to be right. Okay, I have an old piece of sandpaper here. It's old and worn. Tossing that. Okay, this sanding pole here. This is the head of the sanding pole, the round head. You can get these at any Home Depot or Lowe's, and these are so much better than the old school sanding poles that just had the square head. You literally, if you don't have one of these, you should really get one. I remember when I first bought this thing, I had a little 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom Rambler, okay, to sand out, and I got in and I started sanding, and I started in the back rooms and just started sanding up the whole thing, making my way out towards the front door. So when I got to the front door, I was done. I had the bedrooms, kitchen, living room done, sanded out, and I was standing there at the front door, and I was just like, I couldn't believe I was already done. I had just sanded out a job that size at least 2 hours faster than I've ever done before. So these get the job done so much faster than the old school sanding poles where it just has the rectangular head. Okay, those are a thing of the past. So, highly recommend these. There's 2 kinds. This one doesn't have the foam cushion on it. Okay, this is just one heavy duty solid piece of rubber with a Velcro surface for your sanding pole, or sandpaper. And these are great. But the other kind that you've probably seen, they sell them at Sherwin-Williams and drywall supply shops, and I think Home Depot has them now too. You'll see them where they have like a 1/2 inch of cushion right here. You know, it's a spongy cushion, and those are great. The reason why those are great, I'll give you an example right now. Say you're sanding out something like this corner bead, right? It could be just very slightly hollow right here, okay? Hollow, meaning if I was to put my knife up, there could possibly be a tiny bit of air there, a tiny bit of hollowness, little space. And so if there's a lap mark from your knife, this could just skim over it and not sand that lap mark smooth. But if you get the one that has the 1/2 inch foam cushion, those conform to the shape of your wall. So if this is slightly hollow, it's not going to matter because that cushioning will allow it to just kind of conform and get in there. And then when you sand it, that little lap mark from your knife, everything will be fully sanded out. So, I mean, those are great. These are great too. These last longer. These are heavy duty, durable. I mean, these are solid rubber. These are not going to wear out. These are going to last forever. The ones with the 1/2 inch foam cushions, those don't last as long because that foam cushion it's a foam cushion. So after time it starts to wear out, the edges get worn out and gouged out, and pretty soon it's time to get a new one. So it's kind of a trade-off. These are great, they'll last forever, they do a really good job. The ones with the foam cushion do a little bit better. It's not a big difference, but they do a little bit better job. But they don't last quite as long. 150 grit sandpaper. That's what you want. You can do 120, but a fresh piece of 120 is a little bit harsh if you're going to do your final sand on your drywall. Just put it up against the wall, line it up so it's perfectly in line with that radius. We're good. You could go 120 if you want some with a little more bite and it's your first coat of mud and you just want to quickly go through and brush it off. You could go 120. But like I said, 150, watch. I mean, I can really feel that sticking to the wall good. That has a lot of bite to it and it does a good job. And 150 is good. So if you go down to 120, it's possible that you could leave some real slight scratch marks, you know, as you're sanding your joints. Probably going to be fine if you're going to spray texture, but it's kind of like, you know, a slightly used piece of 120 is good, but 150 is great. We're going to stick with 150. Okay, let's move on. slightly used piece of 150 is just perfect to set up. Okay, so you got a fat edge here, a little bit of a fat edge here. It looks good. You want to make sure you get those fat edges. Okay. See how a fresh piece of 150 just melts that right off. Also, what you need to know, this is the mud you want to use right here. Easy to sand, the easiest mud to sand. The best mud to use for your first and your second coat. Don't use it to put your tape or your corners on. I mean, I know this is boring, it's not sexy, but it's going to help you. I like going that way before I walk away, because if I just go straight up and down, it's possible that this edge of the sandpaper could leave a slight streak here. So I just like to give it one of those real quick. So this way, get a swirl motion going too. And then that just kind of like gives you assurance that you're not going to leave any scratch marks. You got a light box or something in the way, just skip it, because you're going to come through with your sanding sponge anyway. Don't spend all kinds of time trying to get all close to it with your sanding pole. Just forget about it. Let me show you something real quick. When you come to sand out your angles, you have an angle here, here, and here. This area where the three angles come together. Okay, it's pretty much impossible to get a sanding sponge all the way in there and sand that perfectly. You're gonna have to use your knife. Most guys that I work with, including myself, we really like 4-inch knives for this. They're pretty stiff. It's easy to keep them nice and square. What we're gonna do here, you're gonna put it perfectly square in the angle, and you're just gonna lightly chisel, because there's gonna be a little bead of mud and a little bit of, some imperfections in here in this area. So you're not going to use a sanding sponge to smooth this out and finish this. You're going to use nothing but a knife, okay? 4-inch knife. So I can see that's perfectly square in the angle. I can see a little bead of mud in there and it's just kind of sticking out. Needs to be squared away. Okay? Once I get it, I push and I pull down and it's perfectly smooth now. Don't need a sanding sponge. Okay? Top side too. I'm going to lightly just chip and make sure that any of the bead of mud or anything is scraped away. Boom, put it so it's perfectly square, push and pull, done. That's perfectly smooth right there. Okay, boom, push, pull down, push, pull, perfect. On this side, if I see any little beads of mud up in that angle anywhere, I just lightly and carefully chip those out, and then push and pull, and that makes it just perfect. Now that that's done, you just come through. This area is done, so all I need to do, I don't need to get up in there. So there's a little line there. If there's a fat edge, I'll sand it. Okay, there's some cooties and knife marks here. Fat edges, boom. Okay. That line down at the bottom a little bit, sand that out. Done. Okay, right there, a little bit of a fat edge on the outside here. When you're doing your sailing, it's easy to just kind of get this motion going, okay? Rather than try to go back and forth, it's kind of a pain. It's just easier and faster to just kind of get this motion going. Boom, done. What do we got here? Little edge, fat edge right there, not really. It's good. Good, little fat edge down here. Okay, done. I can see good enough with the light, I'm done. No touch up. So just like that, from here over, and here up, this area is 100% done, ready for primer. I got good light. I had light with me when I did my final coat. So you're done, ready for primer. So don't stress, don't keep obsessing over it. Don't keep putting a light on it, don't keep touching it up, don't keep getting the sanding sponge out and sanding it more. If it's light orange peel, all these tiny imperfections, they're gone. They totally blend in with the light orange peel. Okay, there you go. Angle. You just learned how to do angles like perfectly. That's it. Your angle's done. Okay, window time. Now, up inside your angle of your window, you're gonna have, you know, a little bead of mud, some imperfections. Just like you do on a regular angle, you're gonna have those on any angle. Okay, so here's your angle in the window. Okay, I'm gonna carefully chipped out the little cooties, the little beads of mud, so those are gone. You're gonna have them on your window side too. I'm using my 8-inch knife right now. I like a 6 or an 8 for this because you're gonna have to come through your window seal. There's gonna be a little bead of mud, and you're gonna have to kind of chip that away and get those out of there too. So 4-inch knife is just too small for that. I love these 8-inch knives. It looks like a 6, but it's an 8. It's my favorite knife. I use it for everything. I love it. These are old, kind of worn out windows. They need some attention, so I'm just gonna lightly clean off the mud like this, but you gotta be careful because if these are nice new windows, you gotta be careful not to scratch it up. Okay, so if you don't want to put sanding sponge on your windows because you're worried about scratching them, just do this, okay? Chip away all the excess bead of mud, and just call it good. Call it done there. Later, after your painting is all done, you can come through with wet rag and kind of wrap it around the edge of a knife like this, or a 4-inch knife or a painter's knife, kind of wrap a wet rag around it, and you can go through and just clean off that drywall mud and it'll come right off with a wet rag. So if you don't want to put this on your window, just give it a scrape. This is not going to scratch your window. Don't try to wipe it off before the painting is done, because you're going to end up wiping off some of your drywall, because this is really soft and sensitive. And if you rub a wet rag on this, you're going to wipe away some of the drywall mud. You're going to have a touch-up spot. So go like this on your corner bead. Always give it one of these, because you're going to have some tiny little bead of mud and some tiny little bits of mud on the very edge of this corner. So when you do this side and you do that side, before you go, you want to just give it one of those just to clean off that edge of that corner bead. We have a light box down here. Now you know how to trim your sanding sponge. This is the most important thing that I kind of wanted to teach you in this video, this sanding sponge right here. Keep a high power light with you, shining down the wall. I always keep it back and shining down the wall so I can see the imperfections. Always have that while you're sanding it out. So once you have that light with you and you've sanded it out, if you see a touch-up spot, I usually just mark it with a pencil. And then when I'm done with the room, I can grab my pan and knife, and those couple spots are marked with a pencil, pull them tight real quick, done, ready for primer. You don't have to stress about all the tiny imperfections, you know, just get the ones that you see as you're going and call it done. Primer it, okay, because a lot of those little tiny imperfections, they're long gone after you primer. And there's a lot of little touch-up spots that you don't see until after the primer is on, because you just couldn't see it because there's a little bit of dust over it. You just can't see it. So it's actually better to touch up after primer, so don't. That's it. Thank you for watching. Thank you. Seriously, I mean it. Subscribe and turn on the bell. More videos coming. See you soon.